How is up, everyone? It's your boy, Homeless Brain Damage Bernadetta. I am homeless and brain damaged because I lost CYL4, but maybe I can make it to the next one somehow. But oh, maybe I might just end up like Sanders and have to drop out again. What do I do? Well, anyway, that's aside. Let us have a little discussion on the new Choose Your Legends 4 banner and some builds for them. And then maybe we'll talk about the rest of the FEH channels, such as Frontline Phalanx, Trade Foods, and so on. So let's talk about our pal Dimitri. Dimitri comes with a weapon I hope that Joseph Harden or Camus can get at a later date. The Moon Gradius. And now that stupid thing is basic, but highly efficient. Although it only works on foes' attacks, which I guess is kind of a cute balancing factor compared to, say, Evil Magic Bikes' penalty game, he can counter, distant counter, with a 2-skill charge on a second hit. So, like a Moon Bow or Noontime, or you can get an Aether on the 4th hit. This gives him a great deal of survivability, which is key to uber tanking Aether rates in the first place. I mean, yeah, it's a bit bland, but like a true Soviet weapon, it is effective with no fluff. Next, he has the Attack Dev Unity. I think it's an extremely deplorable A skill. I assume it builds off of Attack Dev Bon and turns into a level 4 skill and is inheritable. Because if it is, the aforementioned Evil Magic Bike is going to have a field day with this toy. Well, that's if they actually have debuffs to begin with. But given the nature of in-combat buffs as well, I don't think Chaos Ragnell and Unity is mutually exclusive. But this skill, man, this skill. Not only is the requirement of being within 2 squares of an ally instead of adjacent very easily fulfilled, but a massive bonus of attack plus 19 just because, ooh, you got chill attacked on. Man, that's just screwed up, dude. I don't know how they managed to design games for all these years with bullshit like that. Plus 19? Like, seriously, man. This goes back to the notion that I have mentioned time and time again. You really don't want to use debuffs or anything visible, because it's a liability. This game will punish you for it. I mean, granted, yeah, you have to, actually face heroes that has these skills or such. But now that Dimitri is a unit you can choose for free, you carry a risk whenever you use chill attack or when you use a bright shrine. So that kind of stuff will backfire on you. Well, I mean, it might backfire on you. But I don't know, man. It sounds like it's gonna happen a lot because he's a free unit and he's already built as he is. He's very easy to use. So it backfiring on you spectacularly is something that you should really watch out for. I don't even know if I will run chill in those buildings anymore. It's just such a dangerous gamble to use them now. And even then, I mean, it's really not that big a difference. So that being said, I feel that it's poor design. It makes like any prior investment on these buildings a complete waste. It's not like you can just like, oh yeah, I don't want to use the materials on these things anymore. I don't want to use this building anymore. Can I just get my mats back and invest on something else? You can't. So if you invested too heavily on bright shrines, well, don't know what to tell you, bro. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But anyway, the funniest thing is, even if there are no debuffs, you'll still get a decent chunk of stats. Unity gives you 5 attack and 5 def instead of how Chaos Ragnell just kind of becomes a regular distant counter weapon. Not that it's a bad thing or anything. Distant counter is just so good. But, I mean, this is a very solid skill for defenders who can be within 2 squares of new units easily. I wonder if they might branch that off to like solo skills or something like that in the future. I mean, they already have attack speed solo 4, but it's a joke, and it's like, ooh, 1 extra attack, 1 extra speed, ooh, whoop-de-fucking-do, right? They might just do something else down the line that may just branch off from it, but, well, we can speculate some other time. Now, the second prep that he has, Dimitri comes with the Blue Lion rule. Instead of stacking speed, which is what we're used to seeing in, like, close call and such, which is a highly competitive area, Dimitri can opt to stack defense instead, to reduce damage. In my opinion, this is actually kind of scarier, because most player phase units, like mages in particular, they don't have high defense. So Dimitri is very likely to be tanking of all manners of unnatural stuff, and then strike back to heal that with a sky-high attack using noontime. On top of this, there's also a quick riposte built-in with no HP limit, so this lad is gonna make sure you pay with your blood, even if you're able to survive his counterattack and then hit you again and suck you dry with more noontime. All in all, because of this particular setup, Infantry Dimitri is a character I've been aiming for a long time, particularly because of his supernatural performance in 3 houses. Homeless dive bomb!
It is done. This battle is over. On to the next battle. On my honor!
Homeless thunder!
I won't stop here.
That and the fact that I've been waiting for a long time for a powerful infantry lance that'll work with my strategies. I mean, yeah, while I did get a +10 dual F from just now recently, I needed something. I needed something defensive for when the situation calls for it. That, and something that will lead to brain-dead strategies, because let's be honest with ourselves here. Aether Raids is just work. Why spend an hour on it, trying to calculate where the enemy AI would go, and where you will go with your Gale Force, and yada 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 yada, when you could just sit your fat ass on there with your ultimate magic bike and, you know, just spend a minute tanking everything and call it a day. That's the difference between me and other Aether Raids YouTubers or whatever. I just don't want to spend time on it. It's a waste of time. It's work. It's work now. It was fun like the first few months, maybe even just the first month, but now it's just a whole ton of work that I don't want to put up with. I just want to tank everything and watch people suffer to my defenses. But, you know, you see, originally I had President Obaro fill the rank of that, because you can only have one bike. I mean, I guess I could build another bike for it, but that's kind of expensive. I don't really do that. So I had President Obaro fill that rank. Now, this is a strategy that was really powerful even way back in Gen 1 and 2, because there was no such things as damage reductions back then. And because after getting Berkut's lance, Obaro has more resistance and becomes a very strong, well-rounded infantry lance with strong defenses and strong resistance that can tank a lot of things with the guard equipped especially. I mean, yeah, she still can, but now there are people who are much stronger at this role. For example, Fjorm has a decent measure of speed, along with being able to use plus 15 flowers now, I think. Yeah, and I know she could use plus 10, so probably 15 now. She could also do the same nonsense that I've been using Supreme Magic Bike for. I mean, yeah, I guess, you know, you can't exactly get 64% reduction. That's something that only a bike can get, but I mean, she has a lot of defense and resistance, and she's got a good chunk of speed because of all these extra stats just thrown at her for no reason at all. I mean, yeah, if only she could use blessings, you can get them all the time, but I mean, she's a legendary hero, so she can get blessings on rotation. And because of her being a legendary hero, just now even, like, you can get 4 to all stats bonus during specific times. This is amazing. She gets a ton of stats, but it's highly unreliable. Should the stars align, yeah, Ultimate Fjorm is definitely the most powerful Lancer in the game, but, well, because it's unreliable, now enter Dimitri, who has good stuff all the time, and can receive blessings, and all the benefits of the recent pandering to infantry skills. He is much more suited for being an uber tank for my, well, actually really either light or Astra seasons. However, I think he has a number of weaknesses that needs to be addressed. So, if I were to build Dimitri, Depending on his base speed, I might actually put some more investment on speed, or say patch up resistance as a secondary thing. Now the reasoning to build speed is that, well, Dimitri could prevent enemies from doing follow-up attacks, and also using follow-up negating skills by having his Blue Lion rules cancel it, and then using the base speed to settle the score. Most people don't tend to die in the first hit, so something like this will be crucial to securing kills on certain targets. On the other hand, not killing someone might actually be beneficial because their fat ass then gets in the way, allowing Dimitri to take less hits from the rest of the team for one reason or another. Now, I mean, yeah, that could be a problem on some time-sensitive missions, or keeping the enemy in check before they could get danced and heading somewhere else and rip your face off. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, there's some merit in keeping the rest of the enemy team from hitting you in the face. I mean, Dimitri, for all his damage reduction shenanigans, is still susceptible to dying from magic. And he might experience some problems if his health is not capped out. So if he gets continuously attacked, or against an enemy casters who can block his his counterattacks, and then they get danced, it could be a problem. Unlike, say, Bike, who can negate the damage of the second hit to a minuscule amount, or straight up negating first hit by 64% using the best build in the entire game, Supreme Magic Bike. Dimitri has to settle for 40% and then a 40%. And if his resistance is what I predict it to be, he might have a rather difficult time for after a little while. Now third, as tanky as Dimitri may look, he will still run into problems with enemy bruisers. In particular, his nemesis Edelgard. That is because Dimitri doesn't have any damage increasing skills aside from Unity, which isn't all that strong without actual visible debuffs. Now, those guys also have heavy defense skills, or just heavy defense, which will weaken the damage reduction that Dimitri enjoys, and most importantly, weapons that weakens units' attack and defense in combat is on the rise. So, on top of all that, they also have to deal with the idea that they have follow-up negating skills. So as we mentioned earlier, if that happens, Dimitri might have a hard time taking them down, while they will deal a good chunk of damage to them if they get a skill off. So, I mean, Dimitri can't even equip guard either, because you got your B skill kind of blocked. And I don't think we're going to get guard as a seal in any foreseeable future. And finally, Dimitri is very susceptible to guys who ignores counterattacks or out of combat damage like a 6 Paths of Pain Plus, because once again his B slot is used up. These kinds of damage, they don't care much for damage reduction either, so not having no counter is going to be a problem. That is why Bike, even to this day, is just so strong, and it's just absolutely out of control. And Bailiff as well. Because Dimitri can't do these, it makes me a little nervous with using him. Much of his survival is based on negating damage through defense as well, and I find him kind of awkward. I find it kind of awkward to stack stats for him, because defense isn't exactly a stats you want to stack as much as speed, which is a lot more universal use. The reason why close call type skills on Supreme Magic Bike is so strong is because they can benefit from speed being both an offensive and defensive nature. Stacking defense, though, on the other hand, is mostly a wasted endeavor, because most of Dimitri's worst enemies are likely going to be fast casters who honestly don't care about his defense any more than after what they did with the damage reduction. So, you know, you get your 40%, okay, whoop-de-doo, big deal, you know. I'll just kill you on the second hit. No, on the second run. No problem at all. I mean, of course, if you get killed by Dimitri, but, Aether Rage, you're gonna get attacked a lot. So it makes me a little nervous about building him up and using him, because it's kind of expensive. Kind of very expensive. Whereas we already have Bike, so I'm kind of I might just lean towards Billy in the second bike, honestly. I'm starting to get there. I mean, I like Dimitri. I like him a lot, but he has these weaknesses that makes me a little nervous. I mean, yeah, although we haven't seen his full stats yet, I have good reason to expect that high attack and defense with speed and resistance being middling at best, or having literally no speed and good resistance. As such, I actually, I just can't quite say that Dimitri is that good. I think he's good, but not that good. So I might have to continue my search for a speedy and tanky lance unit again at some point with some other unique abilities. Maybe Fallen Dimitri with his severe brain damage might just do the trick. Alright, now, second, let's talk about Claude. Now, Claude might actually instead be the champion of choice for me, because despite only having a pref weapon, the Wind Parthia is actually one of the best I have ever seen. Now, first off, the +5 to all stats and his requirements are so easy to fill that he might as well just have like 20 more BST at all times. And most importantly, when he procs an offensive skill, he gets to heal 50% of his max HP. What the fuck, man? This is like the first time we had something that heals based off of max HP. For a guy like me who uses like healers with Absorb or Bike with Aether, I can't tell you how many times my opponent gets so weak from their beatings that I only get to suck like 1 or 2 HP off from them, which kind of screws me over in ways that are not naturally possible. Now Claude, though, he can hit you for nothing, but as long as he hits you, he'll suck enough for 50% of his health. He's like a goddamn mosquito. He's like a fucking mosquito. He just stings you all day and sucks his fill. Very hard to get rid of. Now, he might be initially billed to be a player phase fighter with a Fury 4 in order to stack +9 in all stats and become a very difficult to kill on counterattack fighter. But I think the truth is, Claude shines the most as something we use on enemy phase. You give him close foil or close counter with like some kind of aerial cube. I don't remember what they call them anymore. And he'll tank things to death while sucking them dry. So a flyer cube, right? Was that what they call them? Flyer cube, flyer box. Doesn't matter. Anyway, he does have some weaknesses though, because sucking people dry and all that stuff. His weapon relies on a skill proc. So, I mean, if the enemy runs anything with guard, he's going to have a tough time dealing with them. Although you can help by teaming up with, hear from me first, Brave Lucina instead. And I swear to God, Brave Lucina is such a powerful hero. She's only a Gen 1 CYL hero, but, a CYL, very important, very cool, right? So, being that, she gets, to give everybody, uses martial weapons, 3 to all stats, and breath, and doesn't afraid of anything, and because she's so brave, yeah, I might have to consider getting separate Lucinas, because, so I can provide these kinds of ridiculous buffs to different units at different times. So maybe I could use Bike and Lucina for one, and then Claude and Lucina for the other one, like for Light and Astra. Too bad though, she can't have threesomes, because both Brave Ike and Claude will benefit from having Summoner support with her. So, unfortunately, one of you are gonna have, to get the stats, and the other one is just to put up with having a little bit less. Probably Claude, because he already has plenty of stats as it is. Anyway, I suppose, though, we could... he could also use Heavy Blade and some other support. Yeah, he could use Heavy Blade of his own if he doesn't get Lucina's help. But then again, doing so, he won't be able to get Ayot's shield as his seal. So instead, he will become susceptible to getting shot off the air by some arrows instead. But I suppose you could also soften that blow a bit by, say, balling him up with ward flyers. And, well, on top of his ridiculous stats, I think he would be able to maybe irk out a little bit of HP to survive. mean, on top of these ridiculous stats, which he gets to bolster further because of attack and speed rain, which is his C skill that is new, that I think is inheritable. No, it is inheritable. It has 3 behind it. And being able to weaken enemy attack and speed by 4 within 2 spaces is insane. Unfortunately, I have reasons to believe, though, that this is restricted to flyers, based on the name and the way the icon looks. I suppose maybe cavalry could get it too, with rain and all that, but the skill is unbelievably strong. I would definitely slap that on Supreme Magic Bike if I could. And, well, really, any units, yeah, really, like, it's basically 4 dev res and 4 speed. It's insane. And, I mean, if I were to stack that with my healers, any of my healers, with Palm Staff, that's going to be impossible to go through them. It's going to be disgusting. Still, based on all these raw stats and such, his actual defenses are just in-combat buffs. So, one of Claude's major weaknesses as a result are guys who uses AoE specials, which unfortunately may make me reconsider using him as my main tank, because, you know, for our times, Ophelia still exists. Ophelia is still very strong. Because if he gets hit by one of these, he's going to have a hard time. He's going to be hard-pressed to survive the actual hit, despite all the, you know, extra stats that he has, because he's going to get hit really hard. And he's also going to find himself in trouble if he were to go up against a Pulse team, especially against something like Marshmallow Lysithea, who can spike for a ridiculous amount of damage in an attempt to one-hit KO. Likewise, he'll also be in trouble against hyper-offensive characters like Legendary Alm and Legendary Celica, who hit so hard on their 2 hits he might not even actually be able to heal enough, even if he were to get his HP restored. So that's the problem with him. Not having damage reduction. I mean, you know, damage reduction is kind of a premium. And I mean, you know, damage reduction also compares stats. So there's also, you know, good and bad to all these things. It's just that Claude, well, I say like these weaknesses like it's a bad thing, but he's already miles ahead of all the other characters. But anyway, he's also weak to guys who does Desperation or negates counters completely, like the 6 Passive Pain Plus, without any means to stop them. So, for these reasons, while Claude is very nice, like Dimitri, I also think that he's not infallible. He's good, but not that good. And why I currently favor infantry tanks, because infantry has a bunch of fun toys to, you know, no follow-up, no counter, etc, etc. Flyers, I suppose now they have the rain thing, but that's still not, I still don't think it's going to make up for it. Not quite enough. Anyway, to the third unit, we have Nino, who has recently eaten a ghost marshmallow and became a horrific monster. I recently asked about what type of Nino she is, and I can array of colorful names such as Simaino, or Albino Nino, or Albino, or Cancer Nino. You know, I might just call her like Brave Nino, or Ultra Instinct Nino for now, but we'll see what happens. Rain damage aside, Lysithea is, yes, rather bland and doesn't have much else besides extreme firepower. But man, having Desperation with just being under 100% HP could be rather disgusting. But that in itself still has a little bit of startup time, much like regular Celica. You have to get into a single fight. So, although she can't pull the same stunt as she does with the whole Hades Omega thing in her marshmallow form, I still think that times pulse is great on Lysithea, because getting a powerful special on the second hit of a Desperation Assault, that and or Special Spiral will do nicely for her DPS. But really, it's nothing special these days, and I feel like getting the first hit stronger is probably more important, because as you've seen, a lot of units like to block the second hit or negate follow-up attacks altogether. Now, honestly, I actually thought that Lysithea might have something that can break damage reduction on top of this cavalry hate. But I suppose Dark Spike's T, or Tau if you want to be technical, I guess it'll satisfy all of your overdone Death Knight memes. I mean, this is not a bad thing though, because if she does have some kind of damage reduction breaking thing, then my bike will be in serious trouble. So I'll thank God for small favors until they actually release a counter for damage reduction, which should be anytime soon, but hopefully not soon, so that I can continue to abuse my bike and put less than an ounce of effort for my Aether raids, so that my week passes by more easily and such like that. Anyway, lastly we have our pal Edelgard. Once again a green armor who uses an axe, stealing warp powder from Zelgius and calling it her own. Her flower health declare drives her around like a wheelchair of destruction and also provides the attack dev -6 found on a mirror, along with a cooldown reduction instead of +3 attack. Now when I take time to think about it, I'm not all that impressed. True, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, you could use it to surprise people or move Edelgard around the battlefield on her own like she's some kind of infantry unit with ground order, but none of that is anything new. In fact, what good is it nowadays for an armor to pretend to be an infantry? See, back in the days, armor did have some clout, and that is that, well, the extra stats back then was more meaningful because of all this, 5 to all stats for no reason at all nonsense was not a commonplace thing then. After Armored Christmas, they also have skills like Bold Fighter and Vengeful Fighter, which changed the way the armor were played forever, turning them into killing machines or tanky machines with a minor weakness of, maybe somebody needs to armor march me so I can get my fat ass moving. But otherwise, they can just, stack together and use gold or ward armor or something with their Vengeful Fighter, and they just destroy everything that touches them. Life was good! But see, these days, armor effectiveness are all over the place. Crazy stat bonuses are all over the place. Infantry has a ton of unique skills that separate them from the rest of the classes, so being in armor doesn't feel as attractive anymore. Aside from, maybe that BST will help you in the arena, which is a lot of BS, you can probably still do well with infantry and blessings. Well, I mean, recent infantry. It's like a ton of BSTs. Anyway, I just don't feel that this weapon is all that inspired, this flower health declare. I mean, it's still quite strong. Being self-reliant on movement and having debuffs is nice. But I mean, I feel that though, if this weapon was, say, on Legendary Edelgard instead, it could lead to some crazy shenanigans due to having more unpredictable manners of movement. With your self-ground order after a 4 Gale Force, and from Gale... I got him. Jesus Christ, why would I get a message now? Hold on a sec. But anyway, where were we? So yeah, you can use Raging Storm, and then afterwards you get your 4 Gale Force activated, and somehow your ground order might allow you to teleport to some other direction and cause some unfortunate accidents to something Edelgard would come in contact with. But unfortunately, this is on this Edelgard, which I think is a much more straightforward character. I mean, she can still jump around with Warp Powder, but Gale Force Warp Powder is much more scarier, I think. See, the Black Eagle rule that she gets is basically an upgraded Pursuit Ring with a 25% threshold and the ability to reduce follow-up attack by 80%. Now this is a little different from Bike because it doesn't have to be from a consecutive attack. This type of countermeasure is, in my opinion, better than negating follow-up attack straight up, because stat in itself could also be negated. So with this, you can even trick enemies into dumping their powerful second hit with all that firepower on a 80% reduction, leaving them with nothing but garbage. while your own follow-up attack heals after each hit if you keep her noontime. That, I think, is her survival rule. Of course, that itself can also backfire depending on how the enemy build their units and what purpose they're for. Like, you wouldn't want enemies to hit you extra times to build up for a Gale Force or Miracle, or maybe even delay their skills, which will allow them to build up a powerful hit on the next turn with Vantage. You know, that sort of thing. I mean, yeah, the Black Eco rule sounds wonderful, right? I mean, she's a strong all-rounder. She can perform well in a large variety of situations, but compared to Bike on the defense, with his constant damage reduction and legendary Edelgard's crushing player phase with Raging Storm, I can't help but feel that this Edelgard comes off as average. Well, I'm sure to others she would appear to be above average, or way above average with her that gimmick of follow-up survival, but being armored really doesn't do her any favors in today's environment, and her player phase can be mounted by any other armor that could build Bulk Fighter. I would say Zelgius would do quite well for himself because of that Black Luna, which will always be good because of the way it can scale. You know, people are gonna have more stats, so what? I'm Black Luna, I reduce 80% of your defense anyway. Now, Brave Edelgard lacks that edge, but her all-round performance will be an easy fit to all your teams. Okay, so now that we're done discussing all that CYL review, let's talk about the other FEH Channel stuff, shall we? Now, well, I guess I really couldn't give two shits about Furious George, who got so mad he became a peddler in Ike's game instead. And I guess there's also this stupid Frontline Phalanx shit. Though, what is this shit? Like, what is this bullshit? The only thing I see here is Asnard farting out a large amount of germs, and 4 brave fighters must swat that shit away lest they catch some evil disease and have to get a tube shoved down their throat. The gameplay seems to be some kind of, quote-unquote gameplay. It really seems like some kind of stock market gambling bullshit instead of actually, you know, playing the game. It doesn't even look fun. I don't know why they're pushing out all these dumb game modes instead of improving what we already have. But I guess I can be thankful at least that I probably don't need some special Phalanx hero to gain extra points. And it probably won't waste me too much time, I hope. So that already makes it miles ahead of Resonant Battles, which is just a waste of time, it's not even fun, and you need some stupid hero just to score high. God, most of those heroes sucks too. It's just not a worthwhile investment. Now, next, they talk about raising the cap for Dragonflowers. Ooh, well, I mean, that's great. You can catch up your Gen 1 units a little bit better. Well, infantry anyway. But, hey, excuse me, are we gonna get, like, more of these flowers in, like, much greater amounts? Because, you know, 1460 to plus 15 someone is not exactly what we call cheap. And those of us who play Fire Emblem tends to like more than just 1 or 2 characters. Not to mention, a +1 to all stats is not as good as the stats being focused on, say, an attack or something. This doesn't really catch up those Gen 1ers to the new standard, unless, you know, they are a well-rounded hero who will use all those stats. And not to mention, like, Gen whatever characters, they now have, like, super boons that makes them even stronger. They have so much more focused stats, whereas we're getting stats all over the place. So unless you really specialize on having flat stats for whatever reason, like say you're an Uber tank or something like that, it's just not that good. Like for example, would Sophia use speed? Nah, she's slow as hell, she's a giraffe. Well, not anymore, but I think she's just kind of hiding it behind her clothes. So, you know, she doesn't need the speed, so that's wasted BST. And you can't just be like, oh yeah, you know, I'll just skip that round of flowers and go to every other stats. You can't do that. You can only get more stats in attack, def, res when you go through that speed, which wastes your Dragonflowers in the first place. So it's unfortunate. There's nothing you can do about it. Anyway, I'm not a huge fan of this plus 15 thing, as unless they double our flower income or something, god damn it. Next up, is the trait fruit, or IV mango. Since, you know, it really just looks like a mango, but it's as they say, with 100 of those, you can change your IVs. Works with all heroes, even former units. Well, I mean, that's a big deal, because that will actually sell former heroes to me if I actually find one I care about. Well, I suppose the Christmas Eureka thing was good, but unfortunately I already had plus 10 mine, so... Now, I think, though, I would probably still use my first 100 on, say, Gay Clown Kranya first, so that I can give her plus attack. That way, she can secure more kills when she does her gay spinning spike dildo vantage attack, instead of, like, you know, choking on some tanky hero and then dying painfully after getting a tube or dick down her throat and all that crap. Anyway, there's a list of Grand Hero battle units with super boons and such, but I wouldn't give two shits about it too much, because unless there's a reason you need to raise those stats, you know, or you actually using those heroes in the first place, what's the point of looking at all those stats anyway, you know? There's really no point. I mean, in that case, you'll probably just be looking at the said hero instead of looking at the list. There's no reason for you to look at a whole list. I don't think they'll also give us 100 fruits quite as easily after the first time. So, just focus on the hero that you really want to raise stats on. And also, call me negative. I mean, I've been negative all video, honestly, but I'm actually not too happy, even though I should be, because now we have yet another currency in the game. There's these IV mangles are going to join the cycle of orbs, feathers, toilet papers, holy grails, spiky flowers, so on and so forth, and then these arena medals. What the hell are you even for now, anyway? Anyway, they need to start upping the income of these resources, and no, adding more game mode that aren't even fun isn't it. Just give us more improvements on the ones that we already have, and stop trying to turn this game into a chore for no good reason. I mean, that's really all my homeless self has to say. So like I said, I'm kind of hyped by all the new things that the CYL and FEH Channel have to give us, but I'm also not hyped because of all these problems. It's ultimately bland, like the characters. The CYL4 characters are a lot more bland than I expected, and their skills are a little more bland than I thought as well. And they even like might have some negative consequences, like I said, like with the extra resources to have to cycle. So I don't know, man. I just don't feel that this game the way I used to before. When FEH Channel were met with great anticipation, everyone is happy, and now it just feels kind of lukewarm, especially for a Choose Your Legends event. I mean, yeah, back that I really miss those days, like when we had those like cheesy ass live action Choose Your Legends thing. It was cheesy as hell with the whole live action Ike versus live action Black Knight and his evil minions. But god, there was at least love into the game itself. But anyway, I thank you all for watching. Until next time.